So this presentation is Building Meaningful Network Connections with Mike Miles, and you can start anytime.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. I want to give a big shout out for everyone from Nerd Summit for switching around this conference to be a virtual conference and really working hard to make it so that we can all keep learning. So I really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into it. So yeah, today's topic is building meaningful network connections. I think it's probably not the most relevant topic with today's climate. You know, most of us are at home, not really socially engaging. However, I think what we're going to talk about today can help you virtually, but it can also help you once we're able to go back out and congregate with other people. So a little bit about myself. My name is Mike Miles. I've been working in the field of development since 2003. Currently in my day job, I am the VP of Technology for a digital marketing agency called Genuine. We have our headquarters in Boston. We also have offices in New York and Chicago. My job there is to make sure the development team has what they need to build successful applications and websites and projects for our clients. And Genuine does a whole bunch of work, so you should definitely check us out at wearegenuine.com. At night, I run a podcast called Developing Up, which is focused on the non-technical side of being a developer. So everything that developers need to progress in their careers that isn't about writing code. So more about the soft skills. So you should check that out if you're a developer and you're looking to up your career at developingup.com. Anything else you want to know about me, you can find me on the internet, Mike Miles86, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm on the Nerd Summit Slack and in other channels. So look me up and I'm happy to connect. All right, networking. Dun, dun, dun. The big scary word, I think, for a lot of us who are in the development field. Both from, I guess, technical networking for computers, because it's challenging, but also networking with other humans. It's something that I personally have found difficult to do, but know that it's beneficial for a number of aspects for not just developers, but for everybody. Being able to build connections with other people is really important for yourself and for your career. And so it's important for three main reasons. One is opportunities. If you're not meeting other people, if you're not connecting with peers or industry peers, you may not be finding opportunities that could best serve yourself or serve others in the career of development or just in your career in general. By building up network connections, you can learn from other people that opportunities that may be out there that may be a good fit for you that you didn't know about before. In turn, that helps your career, right? Probably in your career, you're not going to stay at the same job for your whole career. You're going to look to grow, whether internally at your employer at different roles or to move on to other companies and move up in your career in some way. And having network connections and knowing how to connect with other people is going to help provide that groundwork for you to make those transitions, to be able to express what you want to do or explain where you are or just talk to other people and find those opportunities again. And this in turn helps your life, right? It improves you moving towards what you want to achieve with your life. It also helps you by being able to make meaningful connections just from a personal level. Connecting with other humans, that's something that we strive to do as humanity. So being able to have these meaningful connections with other humans helps you socially, it helps you professionally. So why networking is important is because being able to talk to people and make an impact is probably the most important skill that all of us can develop. It's what's really going to help drive career growth, drive personal growth, and again, help you find those opportunities. So what I'm going to talk about today is how I go about networking and building meaningful connections with other people. I break it out into 3 phases of networking, and across those 3 phases, I have 8 steps that I actually follow to how I approach all networking situations. So to show how these phases and steps work, I have some real-world case studies that I'll talk about as I explain these phases and steps to hopefully demonstrate some of the value they bring. Now, obviously, this is a system that works for me. Your system may be different. I just hope to provide you some insight that you can use to improve your abilities to build connections with other people. There we go. So the three phases, the way I break out networking is there's the preparation phase, the engagement phase, and the connection phase. Now, the preparation phase is all about getting yourself ready. The engagement phase is where the most work happens, and that's all about how you actually talk with other people, how you build that connection. And that connection phase at the end is probably the most important one, about how you keep a network connection alive once you've established something with somebody. Because if you just meet somebody once, you have a great conversation and it doesn't go anywhere, that's not meaningful. I mean, in the moment, it probably is meaningful, but afterwards, it's not meaningful for a way of networking and connecting. So that connection piece is really important. So the prep phase, step one. I always like to have a plan of attack when going into any networking environment. And it's all about figuring out, what are you going to do? The benefit of this is that if you enter, let's say, you're at a party at a conference, or you're at a virtual conference room. If you don't have a plan of attack, you may not know what you want to accomplish. You don't know what you want to do, and it may be overwhelming. It could be that you're just going to hang back and not really engage with other people when it's something you may want to do. Having a plan of attack gives you something to focus on. And I do this by setting a goal. Now, you pick the one thing you want to accomplish at that networking event, whether that's, meet one new person, or, explain your passion to 3 other people. Setting a goal, one, gives you something to focus on, so you know what you want to do in that situation and how you want to achieve it. And then second, it stops it from being overwhelming, right? So if you are just focusing on that one thing, you don't have to worry about, what are you going to do next? What do you want to talk about? Who should you meet with? Where should you go in the room? Having the goal gives you that focus. I also like it because it gives you a sort of measurement for yourself. So anytime you leave a networking event after you've set a goal, you can evaluate, did you accomplish it? If you didn't, you can reflect on yourself about what got in your way, why you didn't accomplish that goal, and what you could do next time. Goals are just great to have in general. And if you did accomplish that goal, great. You could think about, well, in the next situation, the next networking opportunity, what's an even loftier goal you're going to set? A case study I have for this is what I call the Grayson connection. So that person you see dancing there, that man's name is John Grayson. He's the former president of Genuine, the company I work at. And it was maybe like over 11 years ago now. I was at a different job that I did not really enjoy. And I was invited to be part of a panel for the computer science department for the college I graduated from. This panel discussion was to help revamp how the department was going to work and the curriculum was going to work. So when I went there for the evening, I met with one of my former professors, and I was telling her all about the job I didn't like. And she said to me, she told me, Mike, there's going to be a man here tonight who has an agency who's looking for a developer. I'm going to sit you down next to this guy, and your job is to talk to him and learn about his company and have him learn about you. She gave me that goal for the evening. Now, I still participated in the activities of the evening, but I was sat down next to John Grayson. This is actually him dancing at my wedding, by the way. I sat down next to John Grayson, and I made an effort to talk to him, to learn about his business, to explain what I was interested in. And by the end of the night, John and I had talked so much, he gave me his business card, and he said, send me your resume. And within a week's time, I had a job offer. And that was 11 years ago, and I've been at that company for 11 years. Now, if my old professor had not given me that goal, if she had not told me to sit down next to John and to talk to him and gain that insight, knowing myself, I wouldn't have done it. I would have said hello, and I would have just focused on the main activity of the evening. I wouldn't have engaged as much. I would have missed an incredible opportunity that has really shaped my career the last 11 years. It was all because I had that goal. All right, so you have your plan of attack. Right, you have a goal you want to accomplish when you're entering a networking situation. After that, it's method acting. Figure out who are you going to be to really achieve that goal in that situation. I like to think of this as adopting a persona. You want to envision the best version of yourself for the situation and be that person. I think it's easy for humans in general to think negatively of themselves. And if you're not used to engaging socially or networking with other people, you may enter in a situation, have a goal, but say to yourself, I'm not the sort of person who can walk up to a random other person and start a conversation. I'm not the sort of person who can, express my technical expertise to somebody else. And that really stops you from progressing in that goal, in that situation, and building that connection with somebody. So what I like to do is figure out, well, what version of me would succeed in this situation? Or what version of somebody I know, how would they succeed in this situation? And then try to emulate that the best I can. Adopting a persona allows you to kind of step out of yourself and get away from your anxiety and any hesitations you may have for engaging with other people. It allows you to kind of fake it till you make it. The more you learn how to adopt a persona and figure out the version of yourself for any situation, the easier it becomes to do that on a day-to-day basis or a situation-to-situation basis. It allows you to really shape your experience so that you achieve the goal you're set out to do and really make those connections. Another case study for this is every time I present. So I naturally am a very introverted person. I will say I am very happy to be socially isolated right now. I'm most comfortable when I am at home. However, years ago, I realized to really grow in my career, I needed to be able to speak to other people. The number one way to get over that, I realized, was to learn how to speak to other people. So I started presenting at conferences. Not saying it was easy, but it's very hard to do. And I'm not naturally the person to get up in front of a group of people and present to them. So every time I present, I put on persona, presenter Mike Miles. This is the person you hear talking to you right now. This is my presenter persona. The way I've built this is I've emulated what I've seen who I think are great presenters, what they've done, how they've engaged with the audience, how they present their material. And I've over time worked that into a persona for myself. Now, when I first started doing this, it was very hard. Every time I went to present, like the first half hour beforehand, I would have to really psych myself out. Now, Zoom chat. Okay. Now it's like a light switch. I don't even have to think about it. And what that does for me in my career is that when I have to be put in front of a client, either last minute or known ahead of time, I have no fear of getting up and explaining technical solutions to them. I have no problem entering a room with a bunch of people I don't know and engaging with them and switching to a mode that I think will help with that. Every time I present, I'm separated from myself, so much so that usually after I'm done presenting, I've kind of blacked out the last 45 minutes and I don't remember what I said. And it takes me a little bit to recover. But so far, I think I do a pretty good job of it, and it really helps. Okay. So you set a goal, you figured out the version of yourself that will work for that situation to achieve that goal. Next, you need to start actually engaging with other people. The first part of this is what I state as the 3-second rule. It's all about outrunning any anxiety you may have for engaging with other people. Now, this rule, I didn't come up with it, but I got it from an interview that Pat Flynn had on his podcast, Smart Passive Income, with the author Neil Strauss. And what they said in this episode was, never give yourself more than 3 seconds to psych yourself out if you want to meet somebody. Never give yourself more than 3 seconds to psych yourself out if you want to meet somebody. What this is that 3 seconds gives you enough time to take that deep breath, to walk forward and engage with someone, without giving you enough time to start thinking in your mind, what's the worst that's going to happen? Maybe I shouldn't go and do this. It allows you to approach other people and dive into it. And once you're in a conversation, once you're talking to someone, you're making a step forward and you're not just hanging back. So be fearless. When you enter that networking situation, you have your goal, you have your persona, find someone who looks like you can talk to, give yourself 3 seconds, take a deep breath, and walk up to them and start engaging. What's the worst that could happen by introducing yourself? I will tell you what that is in my next case study, but usually it's the worst case is that person doesn't want to talk to you. They either politely decline or they ignore you, and then you can move on and try to engage with somebody else. My case study for this is the first time I met Dries BUYTAERT. So Dries, for anyone who doesn't know, is the founder and creator of the Drupal framework. He's the CTO of Acquia. I work in space, and years ago, I had my first opportunity to meet Dries. It was at DrupalCon, which is the big North America Drupal conference in Portland that year. And I was at an after party, and Dries was there. I really wanted to talk to him, but I didn't have any of these tools in my tool belt to be able to engage with somebody who's seen as, the rock star in the Drupal community. So I spent the party hovering around at, in today's terms, would be a safe distance, at least 6 feet, basically around Dries the whole party, because I couldn't muster up the courage to walk up to him and talk to him. Now, this is not a lesson I'm going to teach, but for myself, a benefit at the time was there were free drinks at that party, and I imbibed in those free drinks, which gave me some of that what people call liquid courage, right? Which is probably not the best way to approach somebody you want to talk to. However, what it allowed me to do is eventually I got close enough where I said to myself, okay, Mike, 3 seconds, you're going to talk to Dries. And I said, 1, 2, 3, and I stepped up to him. And I said, hi, Dries. The worst thing that could happen happened. I was pulled aside by one of his associates who said, he will be with you in a moment. He is talking to the CTO of the White House, for the former administration. And I stepped in between the two of them. Obviously, that's because I wasn't fully aware of the social situation. But I said, oh, okay, I'll wait. And I awkwardly waited by. Eventually, Dries finished his conversation. He turned to me, and I quickly sputtered hey, I love Drupal. Thanks for building it. It's really great to meet you. And I wandered off in embarrassment. However, I grew from that awkwardness, right? Had I had that 3-second rule in play at that time, I could have entered the party earlier and walked up to Dries at a more appropriate time and had a more meaningful conversation with him. Since then, I've had opportunities to meet Dries since then and had better conversations. So I see someone else said in the chat that someone had a similar experience when they first met Dries in 2008. So, it's challenging. So having that 3-second rule helps you outrun that anxiety. And then if the worst is going to happen, trying to meet somebody is like, you may get embarrassed, and then you learn from there. All right, as you're engaging with someone, the next rule is say cheese. Figure out what's going on with your face. Can I just confirm, the Zoom chat window isn't in the way of the presentation at all, is it?
No, it's fine, Mike.
Yeah,
Great,
no, it's
thanks.
all right.
Thank you. All right, thank you for the confirmation. So say cheese, what's going on with your face? Anytime you approach somebody, you want to build it on a positive way. So who would you rather talk to? The person on the left with the smiley face, or the person on the right? Probably the person on the left, right? Positivity promotes positivity. So when you approach someone to engage with them, you want to do so in a positive way. That's only going to build up that conversation to start out on the right place. If you approach them, half-heartedly, not really engage, they're going to feel that energy, and you're not going to start off in an engaging way. And it's probably not going to be a really fruitful conversation or meeting with somebody. So it's all about keeping positive. Smile with whatever your natural smile is. Be open, be friendly. Walk up to someone with a nice hello. How are you doing? Nice to meet you. And then from there, they're going to feed off that positive energy. And most of the time, someone's going to reciprocate that, and they're going to be positive. And that's going to start that engagement off in a great way. From there is learning the magic word. The one word that everyone loves to hear. I get this from the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, where he says, remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. And it's true, right? Anytime you're in a room and someone says your name, if you're talking to them or not, you hear it, right? Your ears perk up. So if I were to say the name Rick, I'm sure Rick, who I know is attending this, he he pays more attention subconsciously and consciously because his ears picked up his name. We're tuned to it. He confirmed, yep, he picked up on it. So being able to learn and use someone's name in conversation is going to help keep them engaged with you. It's going to help build a connection with you, because they're going to connect you to themselves. And then in turn, knowing someone's name is going to help you remember that person. And Dale Carnegie in his book lists out what he calls the LYRA formula. And it's a way to help remember people's names. The first step is to look and listen. And when you approach someone and you ask them their name, when you say, hi, my name's Mike, what's your name? At that point, you're going to look at that person and you're going to 100% listen to them. You're not going to think about what you're going to say next. You're not going to think about what the conversation is going to be. You're going to pay 100% attention to what they're telling you their name is. From there, you want to create an impression of the person that's going to help you remember their name with that person. That could be self-noting physical attributes if that helps you. Another tool I've learned that I've heard about using is associating their name with somebody you already know that has that name, whether it's someone you personally know or a celebrity. So for example, I could say, hi, my name is Mike. What's your name? Let's say that person says their name is Mark. Then I might say, oh, Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. I'm going to associate that person with Luke Skywalker. That's going to help in the future when I see that person again to be like, oh, Luke Skywalker, Mark. His name is Mark. Repeat the person's name in conversation, both in your head and when you're talking out loud. So I could say, hi, my name's Mike. What's your name? Oh, your name's Sarah? Oh, great to meet you, Sarah. What brings you to this conference? What brings you to Nerd Summit today? Great. What do you do for work, Sarah? Like you use their name, try not to do it too much, but if you use it enough, again, it helps keep them engaged. It piques their interest subconsciously into listening to you. And then make an association with that person. I like to make association about the situation that we're both in, a shared association. So it could be, I met this person at Nerd Summit. We're both here because we're related to development in some way. I know that Sarah is into development, and I'm going to keep that locked in my head to keep that association. And it only helps enforce their name. Doing all these things, creating an impression, repeating their name, making association to the situation, builds all these little data points in your brain that stand out from just being filtered into the background. So it's a stronger connection for your neurons to help you remember a person's name. So learn names. It's the only way to make someone not a stranger. And that's going to help really start building that meaningful connection with somebody else when you both know each other. And it's not just, oh, that one person I met at that conference, I forget what their name was. But it could be, oh, that's Emily. I remember who she was. We talked about X, Y, and Z at that conference. And I'm going to follow up with her. All right, now the actual engagement piece, trying to get to the meat of a meaningful connection with somebody is all about, riddle me this. It's about asking questions. What you want to do with questions, one, if you don't feel like you are strong in keeping conversations going, asking questions is a helpful way to learn about somebody else and to allow them to talk about themselves, which is what people like to do. Right? Asking questions finds a common connection and lets people talk about themselves. Now, the types of questions you want to ask, try not to ask yes or no questions. Try not just to ask those superficial questions like, oh, how about this weather? Or how about this coronavirus? Do you have enough toilet paper? You want to ask about open-ended questions that try to drive down to a common connection you both have. For example, for Nerd Summit, let's say I'm in a breakout session on Zoom with somebody. I could ask them, what brings you to Nerd Summit? What sessions are you interested in? Oh, why are you interested in that topic? Oh, when did you start learning about, let's say, DevOps? Oh, I've been working with, Circle CI. Have you used that before? Oh, you have? That's great. What issues have you run into with it? Right, drilling down until you find a common ground that you both can then build a conversation from helps associate each other that you have a connection that's meaningful in a way that you can keep talking more about it at a later date or currently. And that doesn't have to be a professional connection, right? You could find out that somebody else has kids that you both share that. Maybe you're both into woodworking or something. Right? Drive down questions to find a common connection that you can build a self-interest in. Case study for this is what I call Strangers in an Iceland. So 3 years ago, I had the benefit of going to Drupal Camp Iceland, which is one of the best conferences I have ever been to. Now, the interesting thing about this conference was have people like, I don't know. So a lot of different various backgrounds, a lot of people I didn't know. And at the lunchtime, I sat down with a group of people you see here who I didn't really know at the beginning of lunch. I wanted to make sure I knew people. I had no good way of starting a conversation, however. But I was lucky in that, and this kind of goes against something I just told you about, but that the night before it had snowed a record amount of snowfall for Iceland. So we all had to trudge through the snow to get to the conference center. So I started with that question, asking everybody, how'd you get here today? What craziness did you run into because of the snow? And I learned like somebody helped push a car out of a ditch. Somebody else, wasn't really prepared for all that snow. So they didn't really have the right footwear and they got soaking wet and stuff like that. So we had a common place to start from, just our trials and tribulations of getting to the conference. And then from there, I started to ask, what brings you to the conference? Where are you from? What do you do in terms of development in Drupal? And I was able to find a connection with almost all the people at the table. A connection that I still keep up today. Like Reuven, who is at about 11 o'clock, I learned what he was doing was trying to use Git as a backup for what was it for configuration. Dwayne at 3 o'clock, who I've met a number of times, he's big in the Chicago area, like learning about, he actually crochets and learning about that. So these are people that I met at this conference that I've since continued to keep in contact with, and it's been a real benefit. All right, now you're engaging, you're asking questions, you're finding common threads of something that you all have in common that you can talk about, that you both want to talk about. Eventually, you need to end the conversation. Now, it's kind of awkward to say the connection phase starts by ending a conversation with somebody, but it's really important is learning how to say goodbye. This could be for a number of reasons. If you're talking to someone at a conference or networking event, one, you don't want to have that be the only person you talk to. If you find someone at the beginning, let's say, of a networking event that you introduce yourself to, you find a common connection, and you glob onto them for the whole event, that's a disservice to yourself and a disservice to the other person. To yourself, you're missing out on other opportunities of other people you may be able to talk to. And to that person, your positive interaction may start to become a negative one. If they can't, shake you loose and have a chance to talk to other people, they may start associate you with those negative feelings of kind of being trapped by this one person, and they're not going to want to engage with you in a future event. Learning how to say goodbye when the conversation starts to kind of wane, or there's lots of pauses, or maybe there's just no connection happening. You're asking all these questions, the person's not really responding to them. You want to be able to end the conversation, say goodbye, and move on, talk to somebody else. Now, if it was a positive experience, you found something in common, and if it's a professional situation, try to collect the information of that person that you can use to connect with them later on, and then move on to another conversation. The way I like to say goodbye is saying like, hey, it was great chatting about you about, X, Y, and Z topic. And then if appropriate, say, hey, do you have a business card? I'd like to talk further. Maybe I'll send you an email. You really gave me a lot to think about these topics that we talked about. Great to catch up in the future. And most of the time, if it was a positive, meaningful connection, people are like, yeah, here's my business card. Shoot me an email. Let's talk. Now, if you do collect a card and you move on to another conversation, before you move on, but after you've left the person you were talking to, grab a pen, write down on their business card where you met them and like keywords about what you talked about. That's going to help you in the future when you do reach out to connect with that person again. You can look at that and remember where you met them. Again, that's building that association with their name. And then what you talked about so that you have some fuel to engage them again to pick up where you left off with the conversation. Finally, rule 8. So someone said, they said, I don't take cards anymore. I take a picture and put it in Keep along with my notes. That's a great thing to do, right? Digital tools, take a picture of the card, whatever works for you, where you want to keep it digitally, physically, whatever works for you. That's awesome. Cheryl, thanks for sharing that. All right, rule 8 for the connection phase is the follow through. Keep pinging the connection, right? Keep that connection with the other person alive. If you just have a great conversation once with somebody and you never follow up, well, that was great for just that situation. That's not going to help you build up a connection with that person to find opportunities, or just find other career opportunities, or just find that other peer that you can ask questions of. So it's all about keeping in touch, right? The next day, the next week, send an email if you have their info and be like, hey, we met at Nerd Summit. We talked about, DevOps. It was really great hearing your insights. I've since read this article. What do you think about it? Like, follow through. Connect on LinkedIn if appropriate, and so you can follow their professional career growth and they can follow yours, and maybe, you find job opportunities. When it's safe to socially engage again, maybe offer to grab a coffee, grab a drink, just find some social time to connect with people. You can also do this virtually. For example, next week I have a virtual beers with my department. We're all going to hop on like a Teams call with our drinks and our videos on to keep in touch out of our day-to-day remote working. So keep in touch. That's how you keep that connection alive. Great case study with this is what I call connecting with KARL. So this is KARL Hughes. He is the CTO of the Grade Network out of Chicago. He's also, he's the creator and he maintains CFP Land. So cfpland.com, I believe it is, which is a great resource for technical speakers to find technical conferences. I first met KARL a number of years ago at a PHP conference. I sat down next to him at a speaker dinner, and I had these tools that I explained to you today to engage with KARL. So I sat down with him, I got to talking and learned, we're both into public speaking, putting ourselves in those situations. It was a great common ground that we since kept up with through email and sharing news with each other. And then a little while after that, maybe a year later, I was in Chicago where KARL is based, and I grabbed coffee with him and I was talking with him and I said, hey, I really want to do a podcast episode on public speaking. Would you be interested in doing it? And he was like, for sure, Mike. He's like, actually, for my newsletter, I do interviews with public speakers. Do you want to do an interview with me? And I said, great. So we were able to kind of cross-pollinate and really promote our side hustles on each other's channels. So KARL came on my podcast and he was a guest to talk about public speaking. I was on KARL's newsletter with my kind of speaker bio with my tips on public speaking, and it benefited both of us. It opened up opportunities for our platforms. And then since then, I've also learned what KARL does. He takes this a step beyond, is that KARL keeps a list of people he wants to engage with. And I think it's like every week, he picks 4 people from his list and he sends them an email just to check up on them. Say, hey, how's it going? The last time we talked about this subject, just seeing what your further thoughts on it. He keeps those connections alive so that he's not going months and months without checking in with somebody. He's actively maintaining those connections himself. He talks about that in the podcast episode. It's something I'm still trying to master, but I think it's a great way just to keeping track of who you want to talk with and keeping those connections alive. All right, so that was a lot of steps. Let me recap it here about the 3 days and the steps, right? It's all about the preparation. Have a goal anytime you go into a networking situation, a goal that you feel you can achieve. If you do or don't achieve that goal, use that as a metric to measure yourself about what got in your way, what you could do even more the next time. Adopt a persona. What is the best version of yourself, or what is a persona of somebody you know that you could try to emulate to really achieve that goal in that networking situation? Enter the engagement phase. Use that 3-second rule so that you don't psych yourself out and you engage with other people. Just 3 seconds and walk up to somebody. Be positive, right? If you go into a engagement with a positive mindset, it's going to be promoted, and that the person you're talking with is likely going to reciprocate that. Learn someone's name, the most important word you can learn, and use it so that you remember it and they make a connection with you about knowing their name. And then ask questions. Drive down to try to find something you have in common and use that to build up the conversation. And then the connection phase. Don't linger. Feel free to end the conversation, collect information, and move on to another engagement. And then keep in touch, follow through, email, send them a LinkedIn request, offer to grab coffee, whatnot. Keep in touch with that person and continue to keep in touch. And that's how we make friends, right? That's how we should also make peer connections, is the same way, just keeping in touch with people, checking in with them, and really having an insight, or not an insight, having, being really thoughtful about that person and really thinking about them. You do these things and you continue to do them, they become easy to do. It becomes second nature. I can tell you from trying to do this for years that it becomes second nature. And you get continued results. So rinse, lather, and repeat. Every time you're in a networking situation, try to follow through with the preparation, the engagement, and the connection. The more you do that, the more connections you're going to build. The more connections you build, the more of those are potentially going to be meaningful. The more opportunities you're going to find, the more ways you're going to progress in your career, the more benefits you're going to have in your life. It's all about the rinse, lather, and repeat. And finally, I'm going to say, go for it. If I can do this, and it's going to be hard for me to really articulate this, but I am really an introverted person. I am not very one to go out there on my own and talk to people, but I do this at networking events and I've seen the benefit of it. And I hope you try to do it and you see the benefit of it as well. It doesn't have to be tied to physical events, right? At these virtual events, talk with other people, talk with the speakers, go out on Slack and send comments and try to build engagement there. It's the same thing, just a different medium. So I have some resources for everybody. I have an annotated version of these slides available at bit.ly/nerdconnect. So you can review what I've talked about today, the phases and the steps, and hopefully massage them into a system that works for you. The podcast episode where I talk with KARL about public speaking is at developingup.com/35. The Smart Passive Income episode I mentioned about the 3-sec rule, you can find at smartpassiveincome.com/session240. And then a book I strongly recommend, which it seems like people either really love this book or they really hate this book, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's been in print for like 100 years. And I think personally for me, it really helped shape how I talk to other people and really engage with them. With that, I want to thank you for taking the time today to listen to my presentation. Again, I want to thank you to the Nerd Summit organizers and volunteers for really making this happen and changing it rapidly and really supporting the community. We have some time for questions. If there's any questions now, I'll be happy to talk through them. If not, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'll be happy to engage with you there, and maybe we'll have a common connection. We can build a meaningful connection.
All right, does anyone have any questions? No? We do have the coffee and networking room for people if they want to network. And I guess lunch is up next. Mike, I want to thank you so much for being here. It's, people like you who keep Nerd Summit going. This is a great presentation, a lot of good information, and I cannot believe you're an introvert.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody in the chat for your thank yous and your claps. I'm glad you enjoyed the content and happy to be part of it.